native cook lead about her age, until a cowboy said love doesn't count years, only moments. Maria woke up before the sun, as she had for most of her life. The soft light of early morning barely touched the small wooden windows of her modest house, but she was already moving around the kitchen humming a quiet tune. The aroma of coffee brewing filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of fresh bread that she had prepared the night before. Maria had always loved the mornings. There was a calmness in the early hours that made everything feel possible. She carefully arranged the small diner she worked at every day, polishing the counters until they shone and setting out the chairs so they were perfectly aligned. The diner was modest, a small building with simple wooden furniture, but it had a charm that the town loved. Locals would come in not only for the food but for Maria's warm smile and her knack for making everyone feel welcome. She believed that good food could do more than fill the stomach. It could lift spirits, calm worries, and even spark joy. Maria was known in the town for her cooking. Her pies were the best anyone had tasted, and her soups warmed even the coldest hearts. But there was one thing she kept hidden: her true age. People often asked, sometimes in curiosity, sometimes in casual conversation, how old she was. Maria would laugh lightly, tilt her head, and give an answer that was younger than the truth. She had been doing this for years, never thinking anyone would notice. To her, it was a small shield, a way to keep some part of herself private. She had seen how quickly people judged one another, how easily gossip could spread, and she didn't want to give anyone reason to whisper. The town moved at a gentle pace, almost like it existed in a bubble separate from the world outside. People greeted each other with nods or small waves. Children ran along dusty roads on their way to school, and farmers returned from fields with tired but satisfied smiles. Maria liked the rhythm of this life. It was steady, predictable, and comforting. But she also felt a quiet longing sometimes, a small ache for something she couldn't quite name. She was content, yes, but there was a part of her heart that yearned for companionship, for someone who could understand her in ways that went beyond food or polite conversation. One particular morning, a stranger came into the diner. Maria noticed him immediately. He was tall, with sun-kissed skin and a rugged charm that seemed natural, not forced. His clothes were simple but well worn, the kind that suggested long days under the sun, on horseback, with little concern for fashion. There was a quiet confidence in the way he carried himself, a sense that he was comfortable in his own skin. He smiled politely as he approached the counter, and Maria felt a small flutter of nerves she hadn't felt in years. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and warm. "I heard you have the best breakfast in town." Maria smiled, a little shyly. "Well, I like to think it's good. I hope it lives up to the talk." He chuckled, pulling out a chair and sitting down. "I'm Jack," he said. "Just passing through, but I've heard a lot about this place." There was something in his tone that put Maria at ease. He wasn't boastful or rude. He seemed genuinely interested in the diner and its people. She took his order carefully, making sure everything was perfect. As she worked, they exchanged small talk. About the weather, about the town, and eventually about life in general. Jack had a way of speaking that made even ordinary subjects feel interesting. He talked about his work on the ranch, the long days in the sun, and the quiet moments under the open sky. Maria listened, fascinated, and found herself smiling more freely than she had in a long time. Over the next few days, Jack returned. Sometimes he came for breakfast, sometimes for lunch, but always he stayed long enough to share a story or two. He was easy to talk to, and Maria found herself looking forward to his visits. There was a kindness in his eyes that made her feel safe, and a sense of humor that made her laugh without thinking twice. She began to realize that she was enjoying his company more than she expected. But with every smile and every conversation, there was a small shadow of worry that followed Maria. She was afraid he would eventually learn her real age. It wasn't that she thought he would reject her, though a tiny voice in her mind whispered that possibility, but she was afraid that the magic of these moments would change if the truth came out. So she continued to give a younger age when the topic arose, brushing off questions with gentle jokes or vague answers. Jack noticed, of course. He wasn't oblivious. But he didn't call her out or make her feel embarrassed. Instead, he laughed along with her, sometimes teasing lightly, sometimes simply smiling and understanding. Maria found that she appreciated this more than she could put into words. He wasn't judging her. He was enjoying her for who she was in the present moment. Life in the diner continued in its quiet, comforting rhythm. Maria and Jack's friendship grew slowly, like a plant reaching toward sunlight. They shared small joys. A perfectly cooked meal, a beautiful sunset, the simple satisfaction of a job well done. And with each day, Maria felt a little more hopeful, a little more willing to let someone in. She began to understand that connection wasn't about numbers or appearances. It was about shared moments, shared laughter, and shared understanding. Yet Maria's old fears didn't disappear overnight. Sometimes she caught herself watching Jack, wondering what he would think if he knew the full truth. She thought about all the times she had hidden parts of herself from the world. All the years she had quietly guarded her age as if it were a secret treasure. And she realized that the longer she hid, the harder it was to feel truly free. One morning, as she served Jack his coffee, he looked at her and said something simple, almost offhandedly. "You seem happy today." Maria paused, considering her answer. "I suppose I am," she said finally. "Some days feel lighter than others." Jack smiled, a small, knowing smile. "I think you deserve those light days. Life's too short not to enjoy them." She felt a warmth in her chest at his words, a quiet reassurance that perhaps she didn't have to hide forever. Perhaps someone could see her for who she truly was and still care. It was a small thought, but it was enough to make her heart beat a little faster. As the day went on, Maria watched the sunlight spill across the diner floor, painting patterns on the wooden tables. She listened to the quiet chatter of the regular customers, the clinking of utensils, and the soft hum of the morning. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she didn't have to pretend, where honesty didn't feel dangerous, and where love, or at least friendship, could grow naturally, without fear or doubt. By the time Jack left that morning, Maria felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She had enjoyed his company more than ever, but the shadow of her secret still lingered. She wondered when the right moment would come to tell him the truth. Would he understand? Would he care? These questions swirled in her mind, but rather than feeling overwhelmed, she allowed herself a small, hopeful smile. For the first time in many years, Maria felt that the world was opening up in small, beautiful ways. She realized that life didn't have to be measured by numbers or careful pretenses. There was joy to be found in simple moments, in laughter shared over coffee, in the quiet understanding between two people who saw each other clearly. And with that thought, she felt a flicker of courage ignite within her heart. The days continued in their gentle rhythm. Maria prepared her meals with care, greeted her customers with warmth, and looked forward to Jack's visits with a new sense of anticipation. Each conversation, each shared smile, felt like a step towards something she had quietly hoped for but never fully believed she would find. And as the sun dipped low in the sky each evening, casting golden light over the town, Maria allowed herself to dream, not about changing who she was, but about the possibilities that awaited when someone could truly see her, all of her, without judgment. Maria's life, once so quiet and predictable, had begun to shift in subtle, beautiful ways. The arrival of a kind cowboy with his honest smile and gentle humor had sparked something she hadn't realized she was missing. And though her secret remained, she sensed that soon, perhaps very soon, she would have to make a choice, continue to hide, or trust in the moments that had already begun to weave a new story in her heart. And so, the diner remained the same on the outside, familiar and comforting, but inside, Maria felt the stirrings of change. She moved through her days with a new lightness, a new hope, and a growing awareness that life, in its simplest and truest form, was about the moments we shared and the connections we allowed ourselves to embrace. The days that followed Jack's first visit to the diner brought a new sense of excitement into Maria's life. She noticed herself waking up earlier than usual, eager to begin the day, not just because of her work, but because of the possibility of seeing him again. There was a quiet thrill in the anticipation, a warmth that settled deep in her chest. She tried to act normal in front of her customers, but her mind would often wander, thinking about his smile, the way he talked about his life on the ranch, and the gentle way he seemed to notice small things about her that nobody else did. Jack had become a part of the diner's rhythm. He would appear at regular intervals, never exactly the same time, always leaving Maria a little surprised and a little happy. Each time he came in, he brought with him stories of open fields, sunsets over the hills, and long rides across quiet trails. Maria listened attentively, fascinated by the freedom and simplicity of his life. She had grown up in the town, never traveling far, and yet his stories made her feel as if she was riding alongside him under the vast, endless sky. One afternoon, as she prepared a batch of fresh bread, Jack came in earlier than usual. "Morning, Maria," he said with his calm smile. "Mind if I sit for a bit?" "Of course," Maria replied, placing a warm loaf on the counter. "I was just finishing up here." "Coffee?" "Yes, please. And maybe some of that bread. It smells amazing." As he settled into his chair, Maria poured the coffee and handed him a slice of bread. Jack took a bite, closing his eyes briefly as if savoring not just the flavor but the care she had put into it. "This is wonderful," he said. "You have a real talent, Maria. I can see why people in town always come here." Maria felt a flush of pride and a touch of shyness. Compliments were not something she received often, and hearing them from Jack, who had a way of being sincere without overdoing it, made her heart beat faster. She smiled softly. "Thank you. I just try to make people happy, that's all." Their conversations grew longer over the following days. Jack talked about the ranch, about caring for the horses, and about the simple joys of life under the open sky. Maria shared pieces of her own past, the small traditions her family had passed down, the recipes she cherished, and the quiet moments that had shaped her life. Sometimes they didn't even need to talk much, just sharing the space in comfortable silence was enough. Maria began to notice that Jack had a way of making ordinary moments feel extraordinary. One evening, as the sun was setting and painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink, Jack stayed behind after the diner had closed. "It's beautiful," he said quietly, looking out the window. "I've seen many sunsets, but there's something special about this one." Maria leaned against the counter, her hands folded in front of her. "Yes, it's peaceful here. It makes you forget about time, doesn't it?" Jack nodded.
"It does. You know, it's moments like these that make life worth living."
Not the years, not the money, not even the work, but the moments. The simple, quiet moments where you feel alive. Maria felt a shiver of recognition run through her. She knew that feeling. It was what she experienced when she watched the bread rise, when she heard a child laugh in the diner, or when the town fell silent under a starry night. And now, sharing that feeling with Jack, it became even more vivid. Yet, even as her heart grew lighter and warmer in his presence, there was always a small knot of anxiety. Maria knew she had been hiding her true age from him. It wasn't that she thought he would be unkind, but she feared it might change the way he saw her. She had carried the secret for so long that it had become a part of her, and yet, now, it felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on her chest whenever she considered telling him. One afternoon, Jack made a casual comment that caught Maria off guard. "You know, Maria, you seem younger than most people I know," he said, smiling. Maria felt her heart skip a beat. She laughed lightly, hoping it sounded natural. "Well, that's what everyone says, isn't it?" she replied, brushing it off. "I guess I just have good genes." Jack chuckled, but there was a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "Maybe, or maybe it's just your spirit. You have a certain energy, a joy that makes you seem younger." Maria was quiet for a moment, touched by his words. She wondered if he truly understood her, or if he simply believed what she wanted him to believe. Either way, the compliment warmed her heart, and she felt a little braver, a little more willing to open up, even if only in small ways. Over time, their friendship deepened. They would spend hours talking, laughing over small mistakes, or quietly enjoying each other's company. Jack had a way of asking questions that made Maria think about herself differently. gently encouraging her to share her thoughts, her dreams, and even her fears. Maria, in turn, began to trust him more than she had trusted anyone in years. She felt seen, not just noticed, but truly understood. One afternoon, Jack suggested they take a walk after the diner closed. The air was crisp, and the town had settled into its evening quiet. They walked along a narrow trail leading to a small hill overlooking the town. From there, the lights of the diner glowed softly in the distance, and the countryside stretched endlessly around them. "This view, it's amazing," Maria said softly. Jack nodded. "It reminds me of why I love this life. You get to see beauty everywhere, if you just slow down enough to notice it." They walked in silence for a while, the only sound being the soft crunch of dirt under their shoes. Maria felt a sense of calm she hadn't known she could feel in years. It was in these moments, away from the everyday routine, that she began to sense something deeper growing between them, something quiet, steady, and real. But then, as the sky darkened and stars began to twinkle above, Maria felt the familiar knot of anxiety. She wanted to tell Jack the truth about her age, but the words wouldn't come. She feared losing the magic of what they shared. What if he laughed? What if he saw her differently? The question swirled in her mind, making her pause mid-step. Jack noticed her hesitation. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Maria nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, just thinking, I guess." He didn't press further, but he walked closer, giving her a sense of comfort. That small gesture, simple yet meaningful, reminded Maria that connection wasn't always about words. Sometimes it was about presence, trust, and understanding without explanation. Days turned into weeks, and Jack became a steady presence in Maria's life. He helped around the diner when he could, shared meals with her, and even offered to help with errands. Maria felt herself growing bolder, laughing more freely, and enjoying life in ways she hadn't allowed herself before. Yet, the secret of her age remained, a quiet shadow she carried with her. One evening, while cleaning up after a particularly busy day, Maria caught herself watching Jack laugh at a customer's joke. She felt a deep longing to be fully honest with him, to share her real self without fear. But the fear of judgment, of disrupting the delicate balance they had created, held her back. Later that night, as she closed the diner and locked the door, Maria sat on the steps outside, looking up at the stars. She thought about the days that had passed, the laughter, the quiet talks, and the small moments that had become so important to her. She realized that Jack had brought something into her life she hadn't known she needed. A sense of possibility, of hope, and of being truly seen. Her mind drifted to the thought of telling him the truth. Perhaps one day soon, she would have the courage. Perhaps one day, she could let go of the fear and embrace the connection fully. But for now, she allowed herself to feel the joy of the present moment, to cherish the moments they had shared, and to let the hope of what might come guide her heart. Jack, unknowingly, had become a quiet light in her life, a reminder that life could be gentle, kind, and filled with unexpected beauty. Maria knew that the road ahead might be uncertain, but she felt ready to take small steps forward, one moment at a time, trusting that the bond they were building could withstand the truth whenever she chose to reveal it. And so life in the diner continued, each day carrying with it the promise of connection, laughter, and moments that mattered more than any secret, more than any worry. Maria began to understand that while fear could hold her back, trust could set her free. And as she prepared breakfast, wiped the counters, and greeted the early customers with her warm smile, she felt a quiet confidence growing within her, a confidence that love, friendship, and shared moments were worth more than any number or worry. Maria had learned that the heart measured life not in years, but in the richness of experiences, the laughter shared, and the warmth of being understood. And in Jack's quiet, steady presence, she found a reflection of what she had always hoped for. Someone who valued her, moments that mattered, and a connection that could withstand any fear. The day Maria had been quietly dreading for weeks finally arrived. The small town was warm under the early spring sun, and the diner, as usual, was filled with chatter, the smell of fresh coffee, and the clatter of dishes. Maria moved through her work with practiced ease, flipping eggs, pouring coffee, and serving pastries with her usual warmth. But inside, her thoughts were elsewhere. She had decided that today was the day she would tell Jack the truth about her age. Her hands trembled slightly as she arranged plates on the counter. She thought of all the moments they had shared. The laughter, the quiet walks, the late evenings after the diner had closed. Each memory made the secret feel heavier, but also more urgent. She knew she couldn't keep pretending forever. If she truly cared for him, she had to be honest. Jack arrived later than usual that morning, riding in on his horse and tying it carefully outside the diner. His eyes brightened when he saw her. "Good morning, Maria," he said, his voice full of warmth. "You're busy as always, I see." Maria smiled, trying to steady her voice. "Yes, busy, but I can always make time for you," she replied, handing him his usual cup of coffee. Jack settled into his seat, his presence calm and reassuring. Maria felt the knot in her chest tighten as she rehearsed the words she had been holding back. She had thought about how she would start the conversation countless times, yet now, face to face, the words felt fragile, like they could break under pressure. Finally, as they shared a quiet moment sipping coffee, Maria took a deep breath. "Jack," she began, her voice slightly shaky, "there's something I need to tell you, something I should have said a long time ago." Jack looked at her, curiosity and concern mingling in his eyes. "You can tell me anything, Maria," he said softly. "You know that, don't you?" She nodded, grateful for his patience. "It's about my age. I haven't been honest with you." I've said I'm younger than I really am." Jack's expression didn't change immediately. He simply listened, waiting for her to continue. His calmness made it easier for her to speak, even as her heart pounded in her chest. "I've always been careful about it," Maria continued, her voice trembling. "I worried people would judge me, that they would see me differently. And I guess I was afraid you would too."
I didn't want to ruin what we have, what we share.
Jack leaned back slightly, still quiet, letting her words sink in. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she waited for his reaction. She had imagined so many possible outcomes: anger, disappointment, maybe even laughter. But now, with him sitting across from her, none of those things happened. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice gentle and steady. "Maria, love doesn't count years, only moments. And all the moments we've shared, they're real. They're what matter. Not your age, not any number. Only the time we've spent together. The laughter, the quiet talks, the sunsets we've watched, the coffee we've shared." Maria blinked, unable to believe what she was hearing. She had expected judgment or confusion, and instead, she found acceptance. Relief washed over her in a powerful, almost overwhelming wave. She felt a weight lift off her chest, a weight she hadn't fully realized she had been carrying for years. Jack reached across the counter and gently took her hand. "I like you for who you are, Maria. Your heart, your kindness, your spirit, that's what drew me to you. Not your age, not the past. Only who you are now and the moments we share." Tears fell freely now, and Maria smiled through them, feeling a happiness she hadn't known she could feel.
"I was so afraid," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper.
"Afraid it would change everything between us?" Jack shook his head gently. "It doesn't. Not at all. If anything, it makes me appreciate you more. Your honesty, your courage, that's part of who you are too." The diner, once a place of routine and predictability, now felt alive with possibility. Maria realized that the walls she had built around herself, her careful hiding, her fear of judgment, were no longer necessary. Jack had seen her, truly seen her, and accepted her without hesitation. That evening, Jack invited Maria to a small country dance in the town square. The air was warm, and the setting sun cast long shadows across the ground. Maria hesitated for a moment, self-conscious about how she might feel in public after revealing her secret. But Jack's reassuring smile gave her courage. As they walked together to the dance, Maria felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The town square was lively, filled with music, laughter, and couples swaying to the rhythm. Jack extended his hand and Maria took it, feeling a thrill as their fingers intertwined. They danced slowly at first, swaying to the gentle music. Maria felt Jack's warmth against her, his steady presence grounding her in a way she hadn't expected. She felt a sense of freedom, a lightness that came from being fully herself, without fear or pretense. "You're smiling," Jack said, noticing the brightness in her eyes. "I am," Maria admitted. "I feel happy, really happy." Jack nodded, his eyes soft.
I'm glad. You deserve to feel that, Maria.
"And I'm glad we're here together." As the evening continued, Maria realized how much she had been holding back, not just about her age, but about her life, her dreams, and her willingness to let someone in.
Jack's presence had shown her that love and connection were not about numbers or appearances.
They were about trust, understanding, and shared moments. After the dance, they walked back to the diner together, the night air cool and refreshing. Maria felt a sense of contentment she had never known before. She realized that the truth she had feared revealing had not destroyed anything. Instead, it had brought them closer, strengthened the bond they shared. Jack paused outside the diner, looking at her with a soft smile. "Thank you, Maria," he said simply, "for trusting me, for letting me see you." Maria returned the smile, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes again. "Thank you for understanding," she whispered, "and for showing me that moments matter more than years." From that night onward, Maria felt a new sense of freedom. She continued her work at the diner with the same care and dedication, but now with a lighter heart. She laughed more freely, spoke more openly, and allowed herself to fully enjoy the moments she shared with Jack. Their relationship blossomed naturally, strengthened by honesty and mutual respect. They spent quiet mornings together over coffee, shared walks in the countryside, and evenings watching sunsets from the diner's porch. Each moment felt precious, a testament to the idea that connection was measured not by age or time, but by the depth of feeling and the authenticity of shared experiences. Maria's friends and neighbors noticed the change in her. There was a new lightness in her step, a warmth in her smile that hadn't been there before. They asked if she had found someone special, and she would smile knowingly, letting them imagine their own stories. But the truth was hers and Jack's alone, a private joy, a shared secret of moments that mattered far more than numbers. One day, as they sat together after a long morning in the diner, Jack turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, "I think people spend too much time worrying about numbers, ages, dates, milestones. But really, it's the moments that count. And I'm glad we've had so many already." Maria nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I think you're right," she said softly. "Moments like these, they're what I'll remember. They're what I'll hold on to." Jack reached out and took her hand again. "Then let's make more of them," he said with a smile. "No matter what comes, we'll focus on the moments, together." And so, Maria embraced this new chapter of her life, letting go of fear and embracing love fully. She had learned that honesty, trust, and shared experiences were far more valuable than appearances or numbers. With Jack by her side, she felt ready to face whatever the future held, confident that the moments they shared would always be enough. In the quiet of the diner that night, Maria reflected on how far she had come. She had feared judgment, hid a truth, and worried endlessly about what others might think. Yet in revealing her age to Jack, she had discovered a freedom she hadn't known she could feel. Love, she realized, was not about numbers. It was about connection, understanding, and the moments that made life meaningful. And with that understanding, Maria smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her here, to a place of trust, honesty, and a love measured not in years, but in the countless precious moments she now shared with Jack. After that evening of honesty and quiet revelations, Maria's life felt brighter than it ever had before. She woke each morning with a sense of calm and excitement, ready to face the day, ready to live fully in the moments that mattered. The diner was still the same modest building with its wooden counters and small tables, but for Maria, it had changed. Every smile from a customer, every sizzle from the frying pan, Every aroma of fresh bread and coffee now carried a deeper joy because she could share it with Jack and be herself. Jack had stayed in town longer than anyone had expected. Though he had originally planned to move on after a short visit, he found himself drawn not only to Maria but to the gentle rhythm of the town, to the quiet beauty of everyday life, and to the warmth of the people who lived there. Each morning he would ride to the diner, tip his hat to Maria with a grin, and settle into his usual spot, eager to hear about her day or share stories of the ranch, the fields, or the open sky. Maria's mornings now began not just with work, but with a quiet anticipation. She found herself humming as she arranged the tables, flipping pancakes or kneading bread dough. The tasks themselves hadn't changed, but the heart with which she did them had grown. Jack's presence had shown her that life could be both simple and extraordinary, that love and connection didn't require grandeur or wealth, but only honesty, warmth, and shared moments. The townspeople, of course, noticed a difference in Maria. She laughed more freely, her smile seemed to shine a little brighter, and there was a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Some of the regular customers teased her lightly about her new happiness, while others quietly admired the subtle glow she carried. Maria didn't mind their curiosity. She knew that true happiness didn't need explanation, only the quiet satisfaction of living it. Jack and Maria continued their tradition of sharing quiet mornings together over coffee. Some mornings were spent in comfortable silence, simply enjoying each other's company. Other mornings were filled with stories, laughter, and gentle teasing. Jack would often help with small tasks around the diner, carrying flour sacks or stirring soups when Maria's hands were full. Their teamwork, effortless and natural, strengthened the bond they shared, reminding Maria that love was built in small, everyday acts, not just in grand gestures. One afternoon, Maria suggested they take a short trip to a nearby meadow she had discovered as a child. The sun was warm, the grass soft beneath their feet, and the air carried the faint scent of wildflowers. As they walked, Maria felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. She could be fully herself here, with no pretenses, no fears, just the quiet joy of being alive and sharing it with someone who cared. "Thank you for bringing me here," Jack said, stopping to look around. "It's beautiful." Maria smiled. "I used to come here when I needed to think. Now, I want to share it with you." They sat together on the soft grass, watching clouds drift lazily across the sky. Maria rested her head against Jack's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and felt a quiet contentment settle within her. This was what life could be, peaceful, warm, and full of moments that mattered. Evenings became a favorite time for both of them. After the diner had closed, they would sit on the small porch watching the sun sink behind the hills. The sky would glow in colors that seemed almost too perfect to be real. Soft oranges, deep pinks, and purples blending into the night. Jack would sometimes bring a blanket, and they would sit together in comfortable silence. The only sounds the distant chirping of crickets and the occasional whisper of wind through the trees. "Do you ever think about the future?" Maria asked one evening, her voice soft.
Jack smiled, taking her hand. "I think about it in moments.
Not in years or big plans, but in the little things we can do, the memories we can create. That's what matters. That's what makes life worth living." Maria nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. She realized that he was right. Life didn't have to be measured by timelines or expectations. It was measured in the laughter they shared, the quiet comfort of holding hands, the small joys that filled each day. Over time, they began inviting others to join them occasionally, friends from the town who had grown fond of Jack and appreciated Maria's warmth. They hosted small dinners, shared simple meals, and laughed together late into the evening. Maria loved seeing the diner filled with conversation and joy, knowing that she had helped create a space where people could feel safe, welcome, and happy. One particularly quiet afternoon, Maria and Jack sat at the counter after serving a long line of customers. They shared a slice of pie, laughing over a small mishap when Jack accidentally spilled a little sugar. "You're hopeless sometimes," Maria teased, wiping the counter. "I'm hopelessly happy," Jack replied with a grin. "And I think that's what matters." Maria laughed, feeling a deep warmth in her heart. She realized that Jack had brought not only love but a sense of lightness into her life. She no longer worried about judgment, about numbers, or about secrets. Everything she had feared mattered far less than the truth they now shared, that their bond was real, genuine, and stronger than any anxiety or doubt. One evening, after a long day at the diner, they walked to the hill overlooking the town, the same hill where they had shared quiet moments before Maria had revealed her secret. The lights of the diner glowed softly in the distance, the town's rooftops bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun. Maria felt a sense of peace settle over her, a knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be.
Look at this, Jack said, taking her hand and squeezing it gently.
No matter what happens, moments like these will always matter. Nothing else counts, Maria smiled, leaning into him.
I know. I've learned that now.
And I want to spend as many moments like this as I can, with you. Jack turned to her, his eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. And I want the same. No matter what life brings, we'll focus on the moments, not the numbers, not the fears, just the life we share together. From that day on, Maria's life became a celebration of the present. She no longer worried about hiding details of herself or measuring her worth against the expectations of others. She focused on each day as it came, cherishing the laughter, the quiet talks, and the small adventures she shared with Jack. They rode horses through open fields, cooked together in the diner, and spent long evenings under the stars, simply enjoying being together. The town watched their relationship grow, admiring the bond between the native cook and the cowboy. It was simple, honest, and unpretentious. They didn't need grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Their love was visible in the everyday moments, in the quiet support they offered each other, in the smiles and laughter that filled the diner and their lives. Maria also found joy in sharing her talents more freely. She began teaching a small cooking class at the diner, inviting young women from the town to learn the recipes her grandmother had taught her. Jack was always nearby, offering encouragement, helping carry ingredients, or simply enjoying watching her in her element. Maria loved seeing the spark in her students' eyes, just as she had felt herself when she first discovered the joy of cooking. The years passed gently, marked not by milestones or numbers, but by moments. Each day brought something new. A quiet sunrise, the laughter of a customer, a shared joke with Jack, or a peaceful walk in the countryside. Maria had learned that life's richness was found in these small, authentic experiences, and she embraced each one with gratitude. One quiet evening, as Maria and Jack sat on the porch after another long day at the diner, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had once feared that her age, her past, or her insecurities might prevent her from finding happiness. She had worried that secrets would create walls too high to cross. But in revealing her truth, she had discovered a love that was steady, kind, and patient, a love that valued moments over numbers, connection over appearances, and authenticity over pretense. Jack looked at her with a soft smile. "You've changed so much, Maria," he said. "And yet, you're the same person I fell for. The person who cares, who loves, who lives in the moment." Maria laughed softly, a warm, contented sound. "I think you've changed me, Jack. You've shown me what it means to live without fear, to enjoy each moment, and to trust in love." They sat together in silence, watching the stars emerge one by one, the night quiet and comforting around them. Maria felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that she had found someone who accepted her fully, who cherished the moments they shared, and who reminded her daily that love was about presence, connection, and the courage to be oneself. The diner remained a place of laughter, warmth, and shared stories. But now, for Maria, it also symbolized a life lived fully, with honesty, joy, and love. Each day was a gift, each moment an opportunity to create memories that mattered. She no longer feared the passing of time, because she knew that the true measure of life was not the years counted, but the moments experienced. And so Maria and Jack continued their journey together, hand in hand, heart with heart, building a life filled with laughter, love, and countless precious moments. In their world, numbers did not define happiness, Age did not define worth, and the only thing that truly mattered was the life they shared, day by day, moment by moment. Maria often thought back to the day she had confessed her secret. She smiled at the memory, grateful for the courage that had allowed her to reveal the truth. It had been the start of everything beautiful in her life, the start of a love that was steady, patient, and unwavering. And every day since, she had lived by the lesson she had learned. Love doesn't count years, only moments.